Hello, I'm Liz Lumley of Finextra, and today I'm speaking to Travers Clarke-Walker of Fiserv, and we're going to have a bit of a discussion about customer behavior and the digital age. So, there's a lot of talk going on right at the moment about how changes in customer behavior are really impacting the banking world and of course, the impact of digital. So, what are some of the technical strategies that banks can deploy to really meet some of these demands?
Well, thank you, Liz. And it is clear that there is a massive evolution going on, both in the banking digital world, but more broadly, of course, in people's digital appetite for content, access to services and so on. So it's clear, to me at least, that banks need an all-embracing strategy which brings all of their channels together, such that customers can contact them either in the branches, through the telephony centres, or through the new digital media. Of course, online banking has been around for well over a decade, but mobile banking is still relatively new to the banks, and they need to address and bring new strategies, both the technical evolution of the platforms, but also perhaps more importantly from a consumer perspective, what the services are actually doing. It's not any longer good enough just to be giving transactional data. There has to be relationship management in there has to be useful and relevant content, and the services need to continue to evolve.
So in terms of that sort of relationship management, we often hear a lot of stories about that the bank branch is dying and they're closing, and of course there's new regulation that allows UK customers to switch accounts much more easily, and everyone's banking on their phone. But outside of the hype, what are some of the real numbers of how the UK banks right now?
Well, I think that's a really interesting question, considering my experience is that actually the volume of branch transactions is not dramatically declining. I think what is happening is people are seeking out a much richer branch experience where they're seeing capable and competent relationship managers, and that's complemented with mobile and online technologies. So for instance, I think customers are migrating the volume of transactions that they do. They'll happily do a transaction online, but speaking to somebody about a detailed financial transaction is probably something that most people will still want to comfortably do in the environment of a branch with a relationship manager. But the subsequent information, the dialogue backwards and forwards, the document management, some of the process bits of the transactions, I think customers are much more comfortable to do those in some form of digital medium. So for me, it's a convergence of these things. It's not that the branch is dead, it's that the branch needs to continue to evolve. I do think that's likely to change both the designs of branches into more self-service technology for the smaller, if you like, more mundane transaction behaviour, and more comfortable and relevant environments to have detailed financial dialogue. And in that regard, the mobile and online medium are a complement to the branch, not a replacement for the branch. You also briefly referenced there the switching capability in the UK. I do think that is something that is quite important, and customers being able to both research the marketplace through both online and mobile banking applications, but then actually able to undertake switching transactions. I think that probably is something that's quite big for the future as well.
So I wanted to go a little bit more into the future. So if currently we've got this convergence of a richer branch experience and more mundane procedures are done on the mobile, is that going to continue on into the future? What will banking look like 10, 15, 20 years from now?
It is clear, I think, that up until recently, most mobile banking applications have been very transactional-led, looking for your balance, perhaps creating and making a payment and a transaction with someone, and managing your money in a much more local environment, i.e. it's with you all the time, you're able to access it, you're able to see what your transactional spend is. It's my view, at least, that a few things will continue to emerge. One is relationship management, where you're able to actually have some form of dialogue, either because you can contact the customer through voice, perhaps video over IP, perhaps some form of instant messaging within the mobile application. And therefore the bank is instantly available to you in a real person environment as well. So that's one area, relationship management. Another will be the evolution of the self-service functionality. So actually able to be doing some of the things that you might otherwise have done in a branch or over the phone, perhaps changing your home address if you've moved house, or ordering a new debit card, credit card, etc. So some form of actually being able to undertake some of the services that you'd ordinarily do in a branch. And then the expansion of offers, both offers from the bank, but actually from offers from associated firms. So perhaps the corporate clients of the bank being able to provide the retail clients of of the bank offers and services. There is definitely an evolution of being able to buy things, whether or not that's from the financial institution itself or more broadly through the mobile banking application. And then I think latterly, the massive explosion, of course, of payment methodology and being able to use your mobile banking application in some way to pay for goods and services from a broad range of either online or real-world retailers.
So I'm sticking with sort of the future theme. You mentioned relationship management a lot, and there's a lot of people that seem to think that in terms of that relationship and trust, people will move into bank through something like a Tesco or an Apple, and the banking functions will be regulated to dumb pipes in the background. Is that a future you see happening, or are banks going to eventually wake up and have more of that customer service relationship management front end that customers seem to be demanding? I
certainly think it's a risk. I mean, all of the infrastructure is in place, of course, for the banks to become a dumb utility in the background, whether or not that's payments or how you're managing your current account. And for the rest of those services, if you like, the interesting and relevant services for a consumer to manage their day-to-day financial life, be that personal financial management or buying things, as I've just mentioned, I think there is a risk that other players will come and take that last mile and become much more effective at that last mile. Equally, I think most banks are recognising that they're going to have to bring those services directly to the customer in the guise of in a handset or online, and all, or at least most, should have strategies in place to address that. That's not to say that there isn't a very exciting and potential competitive landscape out there, and that can only be good for consumers in the end.
So Travers, how can banks avoid becoming just dumb pipes in the future then?
So banks have about 6% of their customers registered for online banking. About 50% of the customers have got mobile banking today. So digital channels are clearly incredibly important. Perhaps what's more important than that is their usage and the data that sits behind it. So if we look at usage, mobile banking customers actually log in at least once a day. Online banking customers about once a month. So it's clear that mobile and tablet devices are much more prevalent in people's day-to-day lives. But the bank's real rich asset is the fact that they have all of that transactional data in the background, and that data can be turned into actionable insights, and the customers are acting on that insight or have the propensity to act on that insight on a daily basis because they're logging in to their mobile banking device at least once a day. The combination of those two things gives banks an incredibly rich opportunity not to be the dumb pipes of the future, but they've got to capitalise on it.
So how can banks capitalise on this?
So the real richness of the data and the ability to create insights around it is that broadly a bank knows where a customer is in their financial makeup. They know whether or not they're paying a mortgage, they know whether or not they're paying rent, whether or not they've got a car loan perhaps when that's renewing. The opportunity, of course, is to turn that data, analyse it in such a way that you can provide a customer real-time, relevant access to financial products that meet their needs there and then. That's the real challenge for the banks, and that's the one that really gives them an opportunity to move away from potentially being a dumb pipe to being incredibly relevant in a consumer's day-to-day life.
That's excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.